In this week's episode, I'm joined by Tom Voller, the co-founder of Dojo Films, global creative production agency. In this episode, Tom shares the messy realities behind creative fails, co-founder clashes, undercharging, and the power of publicly owning your failures. Hi, Tom. Thanks for coming on the pod. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey and about Dojo Films?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me. Nice to meet you as well. I'm Tom, co-founder of Dojo Films, creative production company. Been running that now alongside my business partner for 6 years at the end of the month, I think. It's been, a pretty wild ride. I don't know how much you want to know about my journey beforehand, but, I never really planned to be the co-founder of a video production company. I can say that much. I video was something that I was always, I was practicing it as a hobby in my free time. I grew up in the age of like Jackass, as it was like big, when I was like 14, 15, used to skateboard, used to go make stupid videos with friends. But I was on a path to sort of go and study. I was studying business studies and economics and was going to go to university. Went on a gap year, saw a film crew, pivoted, went to film school, came out, set up a production company, tried to run it for 3 years, but wasn't good enough. Didn't really know what I was doing, didn't know how to run the business, didn't know how to sell, didn't know how to market, wasn't really good enough at filming, wasn't really good enough at editing. So ducked out of that, went into recruitment. That led to a sales role, that led to another role. And then I ended up in a sales role at a video production company, got fired, and then that sort of led to Dojo in a nutshell.
What have you learned in that journey so far?
It's okay to not know what you're doing. I think in all of those sorts of roles, I remember in every single sort of new role I took, I was always looking at other people and like, what are they doing? Where are they at in their careers? And thinking, well, I'm behind them, or like, how do I get to that? Or I don't have the skill set to do this. And just sort of like over worrying about all of those sorts of things. And then literally, as I've just said briefly on those things, I kind of suddenly hit a point where the opportunity to basically build a video production company just popped out of nowhere, but it made complete sense because I'd sort of studied business. I'd already had a crack at video production, had a bit of an understanding of how it worked. I'd worked in sales for another company. I'd understood how account management worked in another company. I'd then worked for a bigger video tech company and worked out like what things that they were doing that weren't good enough. And then all of a sudden it was like everything I'd done fell into place, and it was like, well, if I claimed that was my plan, then it was a pretty good plan because I like picked up all the right bits of the puzzle. So I think that's probably like the biggest thing I've learned is like, just don't be too worried about where you're on. Like, you never really know where your journey is going to take you.
I'm sure there's been like a lot of resilience, a lot of like tears, or a lot of like, just maybe laughed at situations. When you're talking there, I'm getting all kinds of different emotions popping up. Yeah. How have you managed to stay resilient throughout this process? Because you're still here to tell the tale. Yeah,
well, there's been tough times. I mean, I think one of the best things that you can do is speak to other people. It's like being a founder of a small business, as I already said, if you're the founder of it and you are the only person in the business as well, can be really quite lonely. I mean, I did do that 15 years ago. For me personally, like I speak to a therapist every single week, like a PT. Sometimes I just spend an hour talking about how good I'm feeling, like the week's been amazing. It's not for like, there's a problem, I need to solve it. It's an hour every week. Thursday, 11 a.m. I'm just talking about what's going on in my head. It's a way to de-stress. We have a business coach. We speak to you every single month. We do that individually as founders, but also together as a team. And then we have our advisors who we speak to, and they're sort of like, they're biannually. That's where I've been the last couple of days. I think that's just really important to just talk about it, because I think if you just let these things sort of sit and fester, it can be really tough.
Should we unpack a little bit of like what happens when a project fails or a project doesn't go to plan? Like
nothing ever goes wrong at Dojo Films.
How do you? And it could be past experience, but just for founders listening right now, where maybe they are coming out of something or going into something.
Yeah.
tell us a story of when a project failed, and what did you do to kind of shift and get away from it, or actually just solve the situation? Because
I've got sort of two projects come to mind for sort of very different reasons, and because they happened at very different times in my career. Wind back, I mean, I'm getting old now. When was it? Must be 15 years ago, I reckon. So this was my first production company. I'm solo, just me. Don't really know what I'm doing. Young, inexperienced, a bit naive. And I had a project. So I'm not going to name the company because it's just unfair. But they were in the world of scouting. They employed me to go on a Saturday to go up to Wembley Stadium and do a whole load of like walking and talking head style content. And I went to that shoot, and I'd been out on the Thursday, the Friday beforehand. I hadn't prepared properly on the Saturday, and I'd arrived on set, and it must have been like 9:30, 30 minutes into an 8-hour shoot, and I'm filming, and the battery dies. And I know the battery's died because the red light's gone out of the camera, and then it just dropped. I was like, I haven't got any other batteries. And I made the ridiculous decision to just carry on with the whole day shoot and then just pretend I was filming.
One of those was like, SD card's corrupted.
Well, yeah. And then I didn't, and I got back and I was like, oh my, this is going to be a serious problem. But I was like, I don't want to deal with it. It's a Saturday. And I think I left it for Monday, Tuesday, and I just remembered that you're weighed down with that dread of oh my God, what's going to happen? And I think I waited until the Wednesday before I did the cowardly, didn't even pick up the phone, sent an email and blamed it on a corrupt SD card. Now I did then go and do a reshoot at no extra cost, but I've gone and wasted my time and that client's time. I think the lesson on that really is, the best thing to do would have just been to communicate it then and there. I could have let that person have 7 hours of their day back. Would have been annoyed immediately, but equally, I think people respect you more when you own up to your failures straight away.
Yeah.
In Dojo Films, fortunately, I don't get sent on site to do these shoots for this exact reason. I use people that are far more trustworthy and better. But we've actually had a project where we got brought in by it was a US tech firm, and they were going for an IPO. They were rebranding before they went through an IPO. It's quite a big budget project, lots of different stakeholders across different countries, and they came to us and were like, "We need this by the beginning of January." And they came to us on the 1st of December. This type of project should normally have 10 weeks window to complete, and they were coming to us with 4 weeks. And we basically had to pull our head of production, our producers cancel their Christmas holidays. They're like, look, we have to do this job. And yeah, everyone managed to pull it all together. And I remember we got to the day before delivery, and the head of PR and comms from this company had sent me a DM on LinkedIn going, guys, I've seen this thing. It is unbelievable, amazing. You've smashed it. And then we've had another email come from the team, and in the email they're like, hey, we just need one final thing, the logo page at the end, we just need to tweak that and add a couple. So we're all just thinking this is getting signed off and it's all good. 2 hours later or something, it then gets sent to the CEO. CEO's never seen it. He hates it, absolutely hates the entire project, and then basically binned and canned the entire thing. And then all of a sudden the pressure drops the other way, and everyone's like, this is rubbish, we haven't delivered, we spent loads of money, the deadline's tomorrow, nothing's happened. And you were asking me about a project and how you dealt with the customer, but this one we actually had to deal with the team.
Yeah.
Because I had literally asked our team, our employees, to basically, they had Christmas Day, but they literally worked, all the way up till late Christmas Eve. They worked those 5 days, and we pulled in creative directors and DAPs, and we shot in studios in London. All of those people put their heart and soul into this project. And I had been feeding back all the live feedback, and then we had to tell them that they didn't like it. It was canned. It's binned. It's never going to see the light of day, and that's pretty brutal. But having, I think, experienced previous things, we communicated that straight away.
That's it.
And
that's what you can do.
Everyone was they were the wind was taken out of them. They were, down in the dumps for a bit, but there was no animosity against, me or us as a, we had to deliver bad news and we delivered it. But people appreciate that communication.
Big thanks to Hiscox for supporting this podcast. Whether you're a sole trader, scaling a startup, or running a growing enterprise, Hiscox Business Insurance could protect you if the worst happens. Their policies are built around your business to protect you from the real risk you face every day. Head to hiscox.co.uk/business insurance to learn more. That's something that you've now obviously also taken online. So you're quite public about things that don't go well. Have you ever hesitated in ever sharing failures online? And what was the thing that pulled you back, even if you want to talk about it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know when I started sort of posting on LinkedIn, but I mean, my business partner and I are very active. I mean, daily, I spend time on it daily, posting and sharing. And I guess it almost, there's a kind of link in those two stories I just said, my early 20s and the decisions I made in some of those businesses and what I was doing in my personal life and professional, I was making a lot of like bad decisions and bad choices, and I wasn't telling anyone about them.
Yeah.
And that like, it just sits in you, like manifests, it like becomes a pressure cooker, and you start making more bad decisions and more bad decisions, and you start making assumptions, and and you don't open up, and people can tell over time. And I think that it took me maybe even close to a decade to work out that the thing I needed to do was just like open up and like get it all out and talk to friends, talk to family, and be like, Jesus, like did this, done that, done this hasn't worked, that's failed. In personal life and in business. In business there were things like, I think there was a time when, there wasn't enough revenue coming in. I was just spending all the VAT money, and then I couldn't pay HMRC, and, they sent letters and they're like, well, you can call if you want to set up a payment plan, but I just ignore those. These problems just escalate and they get bigger and bigger. So as I said, now the big difference is that, I worked out talking to people, being open, being transparent means that these things don't get worse than what they currently are. It doesn't solve them immediately, but they don't get worse. And it just kind of dawned on me that I'm not the only person who's keeping stuff in. So, for me, posting and sharing these failures and all the rest of it, I think part of it is it keeps me sane. And I'm sort of using it as my own mechanism. I know that if I keep sharing, it means I'm like, things aren't going to build up. But equally, there's an element of it, which is, if there's one person out there who is going through a thing right now and they see this, it might help them, prevent them from making like that same mistake, or just prompt someone to go, oh yeah, do you know what? Fuck, I'm not the only person. Excuse me. I can talk about this. And then I'm in the business of advertising and marketing. We are shifting into a world where people buy authenticity, especially with, I don't want to go into a black hole on sort of AI, but there's a lot of content out there these days, and I think people really do respond to like authenticity. Like there used to be like so many people online just talking about success, and success is like get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, go to the gym for an hour, have a ginger shot, do 30 press ups, then put your face in a cold bowl, then go and do 3 hours of like cold calling, then do a run, then work 16-hour days and sleep for 30 minutes. I'm like, well, that's just not how it works. Like actually most people, if you ask them how they got to where they were, like they just like, they might have made a massive mistake that they thought was, they might have lost their job and thought that was the end. And then some new opportunity arose from it. Like I don't think you move forward unless you fall over, right? So like failure is a really big part of actually how you succeed.
And I think in what you've described about how you move online, I think a lot of us can kind of like learn from that. It feels like you've found peace in it.
Yeah.
And you've also found, it to be something that brought you business, because actually now people are seeing you in an interesting place, right?
My mistakes are literally now bringing in leads.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's not that, it's quite that simple.
But there's a connection.
There is a connection, yeah.
How have you found peace in your sharing of vulnerability and failures online?
By the response, I think, more than anything else. You know, I'll admit, if I was posting all of this stuff and no one said anything, it would feel pretty, I think I would have stopped doing it. But, you know, there's a lot of good people out in the world, and a lot of the time when you share stories, other people share their stories. Yeah. And that's actually really, it becomes really enjoyable. You know, it's not about you sharing yours. All of a sudden, other people open up and start talking to you, and then you can help them. And now you're actually like, you're now adding value to somebody else, and giving out. So I see the whole thing as a sort of like, look, I think like the idea that you've got to build a business and like not share anything you're doing and not tell anyone your secrets or how you're doing it or what's working, keep it all to yourself sort of vibe, I think is, I mean, I get it. Maybe if you're like a really massive business and you've kind of got like some intellectual property on something and you don't want anyone else to have it because they could destroy you. But we're talking about small businesses, right? There's enough. There's plenty of fish in the sea. You know, there's space for more than one of us to do what we're doing, and I think there's a lot more. If you just go out there with the attitude of, you know, if we share and we go out and share what we're doing and share each other's journeys, we will all learn from each other and we can all be better.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people that I follow daily on LinkedIn myself and listen to what they're doing. And you know, I'm not the only person who's, you know, sharing my story. You know, I've been inspired by others that are doing it. And, you know, it's given me benefits. So I'm just kind of like, well, they've done it for me and I got benefits, so I should do it and someone else will.
You know what? On that, what would you say are aspects of setbacks that people in the creative industry could benefit from talking more about openly? Because I have also been inspired by people, mainly Americans, to be honest with you, who've shared their story. There's now people who are content creators in Africa who are sharing their story, which I'm loving. And in some of the industries I've been in, people have been quite open about failures online and some haven't. And there's always these secret WhatsApp groups and all these secret little, and I'm like, actually, it will save so many people who are about to enter the industry a lot of headache if we all spoke about the truth.
Yeah, no, of course.
The truth of the 60-day, 90-day invoice, the truth of the, you know, client ghosting you even though they've signed off the project. There's a lot of layers I can kind of break down in that film industry, music and creative industry space.
Yeah.
But yeah, almost like a manifesto, if you will. What message could we give to people in the creative industry?
It's interesting within that you brought up, you know, the US, because I'll answer the question you've asked, but I do think we do a lot of work in the US, and I go out there. I love it. I love the energy. I love the openness, especially in business. Like the mentality over there is like, how can we help you succeed? Whereas in the UK, if you say, I've got an idea for a business, I'm going to lose my job, everyone's like, that's so risky. Why would you do that? Why are you going to do that? That's like, and then, you know, if you're a small business owner, you've got a product and you go, hey mate, look at this, I've got this t-shirt. They're like, we'll give you a discount. Why are you asking for it? Like, you should be paying full price and some. Like, you should be referring this person. Like, this is your mate. You're trying to help them, like, get their business off the ground, not make it harder. I think there is a really weird, you know, mentality that I think is like there's a lot of people out there trying to shift that.
Yeah,
I mean,
sounds like you are. I know I am.
Yeah, I mean, this is partly why we're having this conversation, I guess, to try and make it like it's not like it doesn't need to be like that. But yeah, the US is definitely more open. I think and then I guess in terms of the creative, I think one of the things I feel that happens quite a lot, specifically with, you know, the companies, is people are sort of like, they're so wedded to the creative idea that they're potentially a bit blind to like what's the purpose of it. And I think there's obvious, you know, not everything is going to work. It's part of like that's creativity, right? And this is the whole thing with failure. You got to like test stuff. You got to A/B test. You know, you can put out a campaign, it might not work, but I don't think, you know, I think people kind of, I feel like there's quite often a blame game between, you know, us as a creative and then the client, and taking responsibility, and, you know, them saying, well, we had the really great idea and they watered it down and that's why it didn't work. actually, I think often what happens specifically to people within the creative industry is that they need to sort of, I think they do well to let go a little bit more of like their idea and tune in a bit more to what is the purpose, what's the outcome that's needed from the customer at the end of this. I mean, look, I can only speak really for what we do, and that's deliver content for B2B tech firms, right? So every piece of content that we make for this business, that piece of content has to have, like, it's got to do something. You know, it might be that it's got to, you know, raise awareness of X, or it's got to increase the conversion number of that thing, or it's got to like educate people on something. And if it doesn't do that job, it's because it wasn't good enough, or it wasn't done well in the first place. Not, well, it was a really great idea and it's your fault. So I think that happens quite often. I think a lot of agencies just come up and like, oh, there's a brief. We've got a really good idea. Let's make the brief. And actually it should be more start from the like, well, this is your customer, but who are their customers and who are they? And like, what are they thinking? What are they like? What are they going to respond to? How do we speak to them? And then sort of think about then the idea based on that particular need. So that's something we've seen for sure in ours.
Looking at your industry, looking at, you know, what you know now, with the years you've done, what do you wish people spoke more openly about?
I think it would be great if more people talked about failure and creating more of a culture of like embracing failure. That doesn't just mean going, well, it didn't work, so let's celebrate. You got to do something about it, right? But if you embrace failure, then you'll create a culture where you start looking into like, well, why did that happen? And then you can like take some learning from that. I just think the more people share how they failed things, what you're actually doing is and then you work out what you do about that. Then what you're sharing with people is like actual value. It's things that they can copy. If you just share, we did this project and we got an award. Someone who's up and coming has got no idea how to win an award. How do I make a good piece of content? I've got no idea. If you share the mistakes that you made on the journey, you're actually sharing the lessons and the things that you need to do and be aware of in order to get to that bit of like creating something decent.
No, I love that. Yeah. And you spoke quite a lot about so many different things which I've related to so much in my career. You touched a little bit on AI there. You've touched on failure. You've touched on setbacks. What's your hope for the future? What's your want going into the next 12 months?
I'd like every client to say yes to every pitch this next 12 months. No, I think for me, I did a post about this just over a week ago. Our metric for success at Dojo Films is how profitable we are against how much time we're putting into the business. And so for me, really, the way I'd kind of measure success over the next 12 months is, you know, if we can be more profitable than we are now without having to put in more time, or remain as profitable as we are now and put in less time, that would be good. That's what I'd like.
And I hope it happens.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
You've been watching the Small Business Sessions Founder Fails podcast, brought to you by Enterprise Nation in collaboration with Hiscox. Big thanks to Hiscox for supporting this podcast. Whether you're a sole trader, scaling a startup, or running a growing enterprise, Hiscox Business Insurance could protect you if the worst happens. Their policies are built around your business to protect you from the real risk you face every day. Head to hiscox.co.uk/business insurance to learn more. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll see you next time.